Alright chaps, we are back for some Championship score predictions with a full fixture list coming up in midweek. Now last weekend was a pretty successful one in terms of my own score predictions. I got 3 scorelines spot on and 2 results correct on top of that as well. So hopefully we keep up that momentum going into midweek, but there are some tricky games to call this week, I'd say. As always, make sure to drop a like if you're going to enjoy and get your predictions in the comments down below. But without any further ado, let's jump in. Starting out at St Andrews for Birmingham up against Sheffield Wednesday. This has the feeling of quite a low scoring game in my opinion. All 3 of Birmingham's home games so far have been fairly tight. They've had 2 consecutive 1-0 home wins. It's been their away form that's been the tricky thing for Blues so far this season. Coming off the back of a 3-0 loss over the weekend away at Coventry, obviously not helped in that game by the Jack Robinson red card and having to play the second half down to 10 men. Now, Birmingham would be expected to have a lot more of the ball than Sheff Wednesday in this game, take the game to them. In these sorts of matches, stereotypically, Blues have struggled to craft out many big clear-cut chances, as was the case maybe in those home games previously against, Swansea and Oxford, where it was just the one goal that ended up winning it in the end. And we do have to give Wednesday quite a bit of credit. On the road, especially this season, they've been really competitive. A win, draw and a loss for Wednesday in their 3 away matches. They're coming off the back of a solid point over the weekend against QPR as well, where they had some good chances and could have easily won that game on another day. Score prediction for me in this game, I think it's going to be low scoring. I just always fancy Birmingham at home for a narrow victory, I think. Score prediction there, going to go 1-0 Birmingham. I keep backing against Wednesday at the moment, but they keep proving me wrong, so let's see what happens in midweek. Next up we go to Ewood Park for Blackburn up against Swansea. Blackburn have been a really tricky one to call recently. Their performance levels week to week have been so varying that you never quite know which side is going to turn up. Coming off the back of a really poor showing away at Charlton, you'd expect Valérien Ismaël to want to get a reaction from his players going into midweek against Swansea. Quick turnaround for this game. Swansea, they're without a win in their last 3 in the Championship, but I don't think have been playing particularly badly during those last 3 games. It's just they've not quite had the rub of the green, maybe. They've had draws at home against Hull and Millwall, and then that loss away from home against Birmingham. On another day, definitely could have got something from that Blues game, though, and those draws against Hull and Millwall could have been wins on other days as well. Verpotnik's in really good form at the moment. You'd always fancy him to get at least a goal. When Blackburn have lost previously this season, though, they've always tended to bounce back the next week. Wouldn't be surprised if this one finishes level. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between those 2. Tough game to call, that one. After that, to Ashton Gate for Bristol City up against Ipswich. I obviously saw Bristol City in the flesh over the weekend as they travelled to Deepdale. Finished as a goalless draw in the end, but a thoroughly entertaining match where on another week, Bristol City could have easily won that game 2-3-0 with the chances they crafted out. Really impressed by their press under Gerhard Struber. It was a very intense performance from them. On another day, Anis Mehmeti could have had at least 2 goals. He was causing North End all sorts of problems, and I'd fancy them to really take the game to Ipswich in this one. Ipswich coming off the back of a good result themselves, that 2-1 win over Pompey over the weekend, but it's really been in these sorts of away matches where Ipswich have struggled to get up and going, and I just think against a side like Bristol City, who will come onto them, will press them, I think they could cause that Ipswich backline a few problems in this one. Now, a potential red flag for Bristol City is the fact that Jason Knight did go off with a groin injury against Preston, and if he is going to be out for a sustained period of time, that could be a real blow for them, because we all know how integral he is to making them tick in that midfield. He's always a 90-minute man who plays every game of the season, so potentially without him, that would weaken Bristol City quite considerably in the middle of the pitch, and Ipswich do have the players potentially to play through the press and make a difference in the final third. But from what I saw from Bristol City over the weekend, obviously I've seen both Bristol City and Ipswich come into Deepdale this season. Bristol City, I think, have been by far and away the best team to visit Deepdale, just in terms of a 90-minute performance. Score prediction in this game, I'm going to back the home side. I'm going to go 2-1 Bristol City in that game. Just think there could be a few goals and something in there for the Robins. After that, we go to Hull up against Preston. Hull coming off the back of a loss over the weekend. A good first half performance from the Tigers away at Watford, but second half there, energy levels seemed to dip a little bit, and a few lapses in concentration at the back ultimately meant that they threw that game away. Now, Hull, you always fancy to have a goal or two in them. Ollie McBurney's been in fantastic form. He scored again over the weekend. But in saying that, they're going up against a Preston defence, which has looked really resolute so far this season. Preston, nowhere near our best over the weekend against Bristol City. Couldn't really get out of our own half for a lot of that game, and when we did, we're a little bit lax in the final third. We'd taken some of our chances, but defensively still look really sturdy. Daniel Leverson with another magnificent performance, and the likes of Jordan Storey, Lewis Gibson, very solid at the back once again. I will admit that I did think that North End looked a little bit leggy on Saturday, which is a bit concerning going into a 3-game week, especially when you're going away on Tuesday night to a side like Hull, who can play you around the pitch. Hull, though, I think do still have a mistake in them defensively, and for that reason, I'm going to sit on the fence for this one and go for a 1-1 draw between Hull and Preston. Don't think there'll be too much in it in that game. Next up, we go to the King Power for Leicester up against Wrexham. An interesting matchup, this one. I do think that Leicester have looked better in their home matches so far this season than they have on the road, but a decent point for Marty Cifuentes' side last time out away at West Brom, snatching that one back in the last minute to secure a point. So far this season at home, they've got 2 wins and a draw, and in that draw against Coventry, I did think it was Leicester who looked like the more threatening side and more likely team to go on and win that one. With all that being said, though, Wrexham have been quite a lot of fun, especially in their away games. They're averaging 2 goals per game on the road this season. It was a 1-1 draw for them at the racecourse last time against Derby. You always back Wrexham for at least a goal or two, though, don't you? But in saying that, I do think Leicester look quite strong at home this season, and I don't think that many sides will leave the King Power with a point, never mind all 3. For that reason, I'm just edging this one towards Leicester. Score prediction there, I'm going to go 2-1 to the Foxes. I think they'll just about take that game. After that, to the Riverside for Middlesbrough up against Stoke. This feels like quite a close game of football, doesn't it? The first goal in this game does feel quite important. Would not be surprised if these two sides end up cancelling each other out. Middlesbrough still top of the Championship. Don't think their performances over these last few weeks have been vintage by any means, but they're continuing to tick along the points, which has to be respected. Rob Edwards always seems to have the right trick up his sleeve and always makes the right substitutions at the right point. Those have made a real big impact for Middlesbrough over these past few weeks. But going up against a Stoke side who have equally started this season out really well. They're coming off the back of probably quite a frustrating draw with Norwich last time out, because I did think that Stoke were the better team in that game. Certainly had the better chances to go on and win that one. But going to the Riverside at the moment is no easy task. Middlesbrough played 3 at home so far this season in the league. They've won all 3 matches. For that reason, I'm just going to edge them to win this one 1-0. Think it'll be close. Just going to go with the home side, though. Next up to Bramall Lane into quite a big match, actually. It's Sheffield United up against Southampton, 2 of the league's biggest underachievers so far this season, but a big chance here either for Sheff United to get back-to-back wins, or for Southampton to claim their first away win of the season. Southampton, remember, winless in their last 6 league matches. They've not won since the opening day when they played Wrexham, and even that game took a last-minute winner for them to get back into it. Sheffield United, much more like it over the weekend against Oxford. Over the full 90 minutes, it wasn't a vintage performance by any means. First half, I actually thought they looked quite poor. It was Oxford who were the better team in that first 45 minutes, but came out in the second half with a bit more purpose and keeping a clean sheet, considering how mentally fragile that side has looked in these opening few weeks of this season, is, yeah, no easy feat. That's got to be respected. Southampton just haven't clicked at the moment. It feels like week to week they're still sort of figuring each other out, and for that reason, it does feel like a decent time to be playing them. Oh, I'm really not sure which way this one's going to go. I think it'll be close, and I would not be surprised if this one ends level. We get a lot of draws over the weekend. Wouldn't be surprised if this one finishes level as well. I'm going to go for a 1-1 between those two. Then the last game we've got on Tuesday sees Derby going up against Charlton. I do feel like Derby could do with at least one more win on the board before this next international break. They've got consecutive home games coming up. This game on Tuesday against Charlton, then Saturday against Southampton. So a decent chance maybe for Derby to get that next win on the board. But in saying that, I have liked more from what I've seen from Charlton so far this season than I have Derby. I'm yet to be given that much encouragement by Derby. I know the start of the season was a little bit muddled because of all the injuries they had and things like that, but still feels like they can be a little bit passive, and Charlton are not to be taken lightly at the moment. Coming off the back of a really good performance, probably their best of the season so far, putting 3 goals past Blackburn. They've got a real edge to their play at the moment. Defensively, I think they're looking pretty well set up under Nathan Jones as well. This is another tricky one. I really could see this one going either way. Derby have been fairly draw heavy in recent weeks. 3 of the last 5 games have ended level. Midweek game, I'm going to go for a draw in that one as well. I'm going to go for another 1-1. I feel quite draw heavy after this weekend we've just had, but a tough one to separate there, I think. On Wednesday, we're going to then for Millwall up against Coventry. Now, these two sides have already played against each other this season, and Millwall did win that game 2-1 in the League Cup, albeit it was 2 quite heavily rotated sides going up against each other, so I wouldn't read too much into that one if I was honest with you. Millwall, I don't think performance levels have been amazing recently, but they're still continuing to tick away at those points. Solid one over the weekend away at Swansea, not an easy place to go to, especially when your squad isn't quite at 100% at the moment because of some of the key injuries there. Still think they've got a really good shout to be in that playoff mix come the end of the season. However, going up against the Coventry side, who I really think could be in that automatic promotion conversation, given the way they've been playing recently, the underlying data, which has been absolutely superb in terms of chance creation and things like that. They're coming off the back of a really good performance over the weekend, putting 3 goals past Birmingham. And I do think that Millwall are maybe a little bit more susceptible to a slip-up at home at the moment than they are on the road. I know they beat Watford last time out at the Den 1-0, but prior to that game, they did have a couple of losses at home against Borough and Wrexham, didn't they? And I don't know, I think there could be something in this one for Coventry. I think in that squad at the moment, they do have a bit more firepower than Millwall, and maybe that could get them over the line in a game like this. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Coventry on the road in that game. After that, to Carrow Road for Norwich up against West Brom. We mentioned it in the Championship roundup yesterday, but away form hasn't really been much of a problem for Norwich so far this season. It's been their form at Carrow Road which has really held them back. 3 home games for the Canaries so far this season and 3 losses on the board. That's such a flip from what we thought of Norwich last season when they tended to be really strong at home but struggled on the road. Bizarre how those things can flip quite instantly when just a new manager comes in, but that's the test that Liam Manning has with his squad at the moment, and cutting out those defensive mistakes which really did cost them at times last season as well. Now they're going up against a West Brom squad who have looked pretty solid for most weeks for me personally. It's just that they've maybe lacked that bit of cutting edge to properly kill off games, and that's been the frustration with Baggies fans so far this season. Obviously got themselves into a really good position in that Leicester game over the weekend. Couldn't see it out. We're playing on that 1-0 lead, and then Leicester got back into it in the latter stages. While West Brom haven't had an abundance of goals about them recently, I do think they could get 1 or 2 here just because of how lax Norwich have looked defensively in some of their home matches. Norwich, I think, are always good for at least 1 goal, and they took their goal really well over the weekend away at Stoke. But score prediction for this one, I'm going to go for a West Brom win on the road there. I'm going to go 2-1 to the Baggies. I just can't back Norwich at home at the moment with how poor they've been this season. Next up to Portsmouth up against Watford. Pompey coming off the back of a loss away at Ipswich. Was always going to be a bit of a difficult game, that one, considering they were going to be without Connor Chaplin and some of their other key players who are out injured at the moment. Going up against this Watford side who did get that win over Hull over the weekend. A much improved second half performance from Paulo Pesolano's men, but there still feels like there's a bit of a disconnect between the supporters, that coach, maybe even some of the playing squad at the moment. From the outside looking in, it certainly doesn't feel like everyone at Watford is singing off the same hymn sheet at the moment. Obviously, there was some chance directed towards the manager that you're getting sacked in the morning during that whole game before they turned it around in the second half. So atmosphere isn't amazing there at the moment. With that being said, most of their matches this season, Watford's have tended to be quite tight. Even the ones they've lost have been low-scoring ones. Pompey at Fratton Park, not an easy place to go to, but they're a bit depleted right now. Score prediction here, I am going to say that one ends level. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between those two. And then to round off this midweek batch of games, we're going to Loftus Road for Queen's Park Rangers up against Oxford. Bit disappointed with Oxford over the weekend to not follow up that really good performance they had away at Bristol City prior to that Sheff United game. They came out against Sheff United looking quite bright, but second half couldn't keep up those intensity levels and ultimately ended up losing it 1-0. Going away to a side like QPR won't be easy. QPR I didn't think were at their best over the weekend as they drew away at Sheffield Wednesday, but prior to that game I was liking the look of QPR. It just felt like maybe that game against Wednesday was a bit of an off day for one too many of their forward players. If they click back into gear in this game, I do think I would have QPR as the favourites for this one. Score prediction for me, I'm going to go 2-1. QPR in that game. Back them to get back to winning ways there. Well guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to drop a like and get your score predictions in the comments down below. Other than that though guys, thank you very much for tuning in and I'll see you all in the next one.